As soon as that opening song kicked in, I was having a good time. I was jamming, I was enjoying it. But then the beat just gets better and better and better to the point that I probably vibed harder to this opening song than to anyone I've ever seen in anime. This song will not be skipped, but Tonikawa, Over the Moon for You, is a rom-com anime I've been very excited before because usually with rom-coms you get the will they won't they, but how many times do you start off a rom-com by the end of the first episode with a marriage between two people and the first thing they've ever done since getting married is hold hands? It's silly, it's ridiculous, it's honestly absurd, and I love every minute of this. Generally with these types of shows, you just don't like the characters. Usually the main female protagonist is alright, but, the main male character just feels like you don't want to root for the guy. But there's something about Nasa, our main male character in this show, who is just adorable. And I think it's probably due to the really solid vocal performance as well as the really just cute, almost, it feels chibi without being chibi aesthetic. There's just something about looking at these characters and you just want to hug them. They feel innocent, they feel pure. I mean, the main female protagonist, Tsukasa, I'm not really sure about her. I feel like she is wholesome, but I wonder why she was so gung-ho about getting married and even tracking him down years later. But still, at the end of the day, it's just a wholesome romance comedy anime, and it rolls with the absurdity. This show literally has our guy who is so bound and bent to be the best person he can be because people talk shit about his name because it's very similar to the NASA space program. So he wants to be the big hot shot. Doesn't matter how absurd it is, he's not going to have backup plans, he's going to get to the best of the best school, and he's going to show everyone who's boss not to make fun of him. Sees a pretty girl on the street, doesn't check both ways, crosses, gets hit by the car. Turns out said girl actually took most of the force, and he's like thinking he's going to die, you're thinking it's all dramatic, and he's like, you know what, I'm not going to die here, I'm going to chase after this girl, just like the stories, and it just escalates from there. And she even says in this episode that his legs are broken and somehow he's still running after her. There's no logic to a lot of the real harsh penalties that this man has faced in this episode, but it doesn't matter. This show is simply about the relationship between these two characters and the idea of fate and how nothing is going to keep them apart. And it was actually kind of interesting because I figured what they're going to do with this whole premise was that obviously there'd be maybe a week or even a month that they don't see each other, but then they'd grow up together and then we'd start the show with them actually getting married. Like, okay, we're 18 now, this is what we promised. I thought that was the formula. This girl left him on red for how many years? At his lowest point being like, I got all this money, but I got nothing going on in my life. She pops up being like, hey, let's get married. There's something about the boldness of just saying, hey, logic is saying this makes no sense. Not even just on the physical injuries and how he survived so many his head was leaking like a goddamn water fountain, right? There's no logical way for him to survive. Doesn't matter. You're looking at just the relationship saying like, you might want to ask some questions. Hell, if the first thing you do after getting married is hold hands because, you just learned her name years later, right? There's a lot of things you want to learn about a person before getting married, but still, this is a wholesome anime. And unless she turns out to slit his throat in the middle of the night, I'm gonna stick by calling this wholesome, and we're just kind of supposed to roll with the cuteness, because this is what the show is. It's cute, it's adorable, and it's honestly quite funny. And I think had the two characters not been very gripping from the intro, I wouldn't really be overly fond of this, because there's a lot of what this man says that reminds me of shows that make me want to punch the characters. He's talking about how he's like, oh, is this what it's like to be around a girl? Her hair smells like her shampoo. Oh my god, we're gonna sleep in the same bed, right? The general, no real confidence, has no experience around the female body, right? And generally the authors, I don't know exactly what they did differently. I can't honestly just break it down and say this is what they did differently. I think it does go hand in hand with the wholesome idea that this man has been so lost in thought of trying to get this career that he doesn't really want to show someone who's boss, and he had love at first sight, and that's simply all it is. He didn't have malicious intent. He wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna sleep with this girl. It's just like, you know what, he's like, this girl is goddamn pretty and I want to get to know her, and because she saved my life, I fell in love with her at first sight, and if she wants to get married, go ahead. Clearly there's something with her in terms of why she went that way, and I hope we do explore that. She does talk about how she has to take care of some business before she moves in. I wonder if it's something to do with families, but still, it's wrapped around a wholesome aura. So as he says these very cliche, cringy things that generally come from despicable protagonists, you just want to give the guy a hug. You're like, you know what, buddy, you deserve this. Go ahead. There's a moment in this episode that had me rolling. I paused it for a minute or so, where she's basically saying all these things and he's thinking to himself, this has to be a scam. And then the next panel is him just being like, scams are great, aren't they? As his pen goes flying. Or just, I love the presentation shifts where when the marriage is basically dropped on him, the apartment's basically like shifting Looney Tunes style. The animators had some fun with this, I have to say. This, just from the color palette, just really sucking in with it. It feels wholesome visually, like just the beautiful and just soft colors. It makes you look at everything, as absurd as it is, even when his head's a blood fountain, and you just think it's wholesome. It starts off a little dramatic because you don't know where it's going, and then quickly after that you realize what this show wants to be. The voice actors have this soft and pleasant persona, so you never feel like you want to hit them upside the head. You want to root for this newlywed couple. It just feels completely wholesome and it's gripping. It's different. How many times do you see a rom-com that goes this extreme right off the gate? And by doing so, you now get 11 episodes of territory you hardly ever see. The last time I can recall a rom-com that had just husband and wife is I Don't Understand What My Husband Is Saying, and that's just a short anime series. So to know that we're going to get full-length episodes of something that's going to have that romance, going to have that comedy, and maybe there'll be some drama as well, it just has me ecstatic because rom-coms are my favorite genre of anime, and there's not enough that are just so exceptional that really just, you want to scream from the rooftops, you want to really hype it up, but Tonikawa, Over the Moon for You, is going to be one of my favorite shows of the season. I'm pretty confident in that fact. Great color palette, great character designs, very soft, very adorable. They blend between the typical anime style and almost chibi into this really adorable aesthetic. The animation, when they go absolutely absurd, has me really excited for future comedy scenes. And yeah, the premise is ridiculous. Yeah, there's some logic inconsistencies with apparently dying and then not dying, broken legs, but running. You know what? Doesn't matter. This show wants to be the focus on this relationship, this unlikely pairing, and a bond that seemingly can't break. And I am all for it. Unless they throw me a curveball and she starts slashing his throat in the middle of the night, I'm gonna continue to say what I just said here, and I am so excited for more, and hopefully more people check this out, or at the very least watch that opening song, because that shit is fire. I do believe this is a pretty popular manga series. I believe this is the source material, so I'm hoping that the anime is gonna garnish quite a big following, because it just feels like this has the anime community it feels like that's what they want to see. Cute character designs, great vocal performance, hilarious scenes, some pretty, sappy but cliche but also unique romance twist. It just feels like we're going to see something that I think the first episode did great at hooking in the casual to maybe the more hardcore anime watcher, and then ending it at a point that is going to show a lot of people new territory, both new and old fans alike, that we really don't get to see. Because most authors keep it in high school because that's the easiest way to relate to their target audience. Where with here, we're saying, yeah, they're out of school now, and they're newlyweds. This is what you want to aim for, basically. It's just so great to see something take on a fresh and new idea in a sea of anime where generally it's just, you feel like when you see rom-com, it's like, okay, we're going to have a high school romance. And you're saying, no, we're not having high school romance in the slightest. And I'm like, okay, that's intriguing. That's different. That's fresh. That's exciting. I mean, everyone that I've talked to who have never heard of this show, when I told them what the premise was, they were laughing their ass off, being like, that's amazing. You're getting the will they, won't they out the window, and while there probably is still will they, won't they with, more touchy subject matter for this guy, I mean, if holding hands is touchy, I mean, sex is going to be like blowing his mind. But obviously, it's great. It feels like we're going into new territory, and I'm excited to see a longer version of a show that I really enjoyed, which I don't understand my husband saying, and I'm really hoping we're going to see something exceptional with this show, which I think we will. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Your favorite moment? Whatever you're feeling, of course, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.